Now, Nigeria is experiencing unprecedented heat waves with rising temperatures threatening both public health and also livelihood. Experts attribute the increasing frequency and intensity of heat waves to climate change, which has pushed temperatures beyond 40 degrees centigrade in many parts of the country. Our reports indicate that extreme heat is fueling a surge in heat strokes, dehydration, and also respiratory illnesses, especially among vulnerable populations such as the elderly and children and outdoor workers as well. The situation is worsening by poor urban planning, limited access to cooling infrastructure, and rising energy costs, leaving millions exposed to dangerously high temperatures. According to climate analysts, Nigeria's average temperature has risen by over 1 degree centigrade in the last century, and there are projections that this might even increase further. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency has issued warnings about prolonged periods of heat stress, urging communities to adopt heat mitigation strategies. And despite these warnings, public awareness remains low, and adaptation measures are still inadequate in most regions. To better understand the impact of extreme heat on Nigerians and the urgent need for climate resilience, our correspondent Aishat Salihu has been covering the issue, and here is her report.
Nigeria's economic heartbeat is known for its vibrant energy, but in recent years, the city's scorching heat has become harder to ignore. The temperature is rising, with weather forecasts hitting 33 degrees Celsius, soaring to as high as 36 degrees Celsius. A stark reminder that climate change is not a distant threat. It is here, and it is happening now. It begs the question, how does an average Lagosian who hustle and bustle for their daily source of living cope in this rising temperature?
We cannot yet predict for 2025, but for years that have been completed, 2024, 2023, 2022, these years in series have been reported to be the hottest year so far. And in terms of months, February, March of 2022, 2023, 2024 successively have also been reported to be the hottest year in record. These are things that are, on public domain. So it is a fact that as we go into different years, it's becoming gradually warmer than normal.
As Lagos continues to expand in population and urbanization, it has also become ground zero for climate change's most immediate effects: rising temperatures, prolonged heat waves, and unpredictable weather patterns.
Our passenger going to not by force the passenger going to enter motor for a year. You go to shout, say heat. He say, I beg, help me open your boot, help me open your door. Say, make a command the door for you because of heat. Don't me cause the heat.
Heat kosino, kojaki oja ya asiko ohun dere awa. Ó yẹ kí no wà. Nepa on fún wa nínú àárọ̀ jata. Ko tó fi affect mi nìyẹn. Mi ò rajata dáadáa. Time yìí ni àwọn èèyàn ń béèrè block.
The temperature is higher than before. Before it's not up to half. But when you see the temperature now, it's going. Even though we are scared, afraid, maybe not damage the radiator because the temperature is too much.
Idan zai yawa yana fashewa sosai, ke ga wannan duka wanda ya fashe wannan duk ya tashi da aiki kenan. Allah sai dai mu kai shi bola.
Experts warn that the causes of climate change are directly linked to the environmental crisis and worsening health outcomes for the population.
What we're doing mainly wrong is massive hundreds and millions of tons of pollution of a specific gas, the CO2 gas. And this for years, for the last 100 years, it's been raising the temperature of the earth higher than average, and it's been going up and up and up. It's getting faster and faster. The scientists have been telling us that this is exactly what would happen. The only thing is happening a little bit earlier than they had anticipated in terms of the rate of rapidity of the increase.
Extreme of temperatures, a high temperature, especially heat wave that is unmitigated, will lead to severe dehydration due to excessive loss of fluid and the dysfunction of various organs and systems as a result of protein denaturing.
The realities on ground show a slow pace in action. However,
Experts argue that only committed and sustained action can effectively mitigate the impact of climate change.
The solution for both Lagos and for the northern frontline states is to continue to plant trees as much as possible. And those that you have, try to conserve them.
As Lagos continues to grow, the urgency of addressing climate change becomes more apparent. Rising temperatures and high humidity levels are just few of the many symptoms of a warming planet. And for the people of Lagos, the time to act is now. In Lagos, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
Joining us now in the studio to speak further on her report is Aishat Salihu, our correspondent here at News Central. Also joining us virtually is Awa Mercy. She's climate change, head of the climate change unit at the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. Ladies, welcome, thank you for joining us. Actually, I'll start with you. Were there any surprises for you in taking on this report? Was the assessment on the streets commensurate to the predictions that we've had about the weather recently?
Thank you so much, Felicity. Of course, there were no surprises. I mean, all of the things I experienced on the street were expected because we have had experts talk about this heat wave. It's rising. I mean, you heard NIMET issuing out warnings for heat stress for certain states, and there are also frontline states, and it was very particular for me to take on this report because I experienced it myself. I mean,
we all feel it. We all experience it. I'm just, I just thought maybe there was something extra different from what you experienced because, I mean, what we saw there, those are buses. We call them molue, right?
No, that's Kurupe.
Oh, that's Kurukwe. For those that are not in Lagos, I'm referring to the buses. I don't know if the director can flash some of that on the screen. The transportation we use here, there are no proper ventilation, no ACs, so people are just struggling and that's majorly what you
right. I mean,
people you spoke with.
Right, the residents, they were really lamenting. I mean, the temperature is high, the heat is really, the sun is catching, and they're really complaining that, I mean, everywhere is hot, especially for those who have to go outside to work. I mean, I'm talking about people leaving from their houses from morning time till evening, and they are still out, perhaps in the sun, working. You saw hawkers, you saw people who are conductors or drivers of these buses that you talked about earlier, and they are lamenting. As a matter of fact, it's having economic toll on their businesses. Some people may not want to patronize them. They may not, like the lady who sells soft drinks, she did mention that a lot of people wouldn't want to buy from her because her stuff isn't cold, it's not chilled enough. So, and then the bus guys, they talked about how, like the other guy talked about how his radiator, the temperature is rising, it's a lot. The Lagosians are complaining. Even some people who, it's just a few minutes report. Some people that I had, I couldn't even put them in the report. They talked about how, going to work under this intense heat and then returning home, they're exhausted. They just want to get home and have some family time, but then they're exhausted.
I hope it's not the same for you because you are our guest here in Lagos. But let's come to our guest on a line, and that is Awa Mercy. Awa, you're a climate change expert. Now, we're wondering, specifically for Lagos State, we know the temperatures are rising. We can feel it at night, but during the day, is it just the heat from climate change issues, or are there other additional factors that add to the kind of heat that we experience, especially here in Lagos? Awa.
Okay, thank you so very much for having me on this program. Yeah, issues that brought us along Lagos State is very critical. My reason for saying it's critical because Lagos is one of the most populated cities in Africa, and it's obvious that the level of migration, rural-urban migration to Lagos is high. Now, considering the fact that there are a lot of people in Lagos, it simply means there are a lot of activities going on in Lagos. There are a lot of vehicles in Lagos. There are a lot of people burning fuel. There are a lot of people using generator in Lagos. So you see the ratio of
Okay, we seem to be having a little glitch with our guests. Awa, we'll try and reconnect with her. I'm hoping the network will let up.
high. It's
okay.
And she's gone again. Awa, we'll try and reconnect with you if you can hear us. Awa, I don't know if you can hear us currently, but we lost you for a bit. We will come back to you in just a minute. Aishat, when you were taking the reports, did people also talk about the fact that they have to run these generators and perhaps, of course, let's talk about the nighttime heat. I and Felicity were talking about how hot it was last night.
I actually slept on the floor. I was telling him, he thought I was kidding. I could not stay on the bed because it was so hot. I had to stay on the floor.
Now, contributing factor is that there would be no power mostly in most nights. So what did people have to say about regarding the electricity, them getting their own electricity and the use of generators?
Yes, it would suffice to say that for most people, especially people who have to use power for their businesses, and then they're saying that there is no power. I mean, they can hardly get access to this facility. Sometimes they have to power their gen, and you know, the cost of fuel is up. So they have to look for alternative means, or just like Felicity said, just, you know, do whatever you can and be fine.
Change habits.
Yes, yes. So it's really terrible, I must add, because they are really complaining that there's this inconsistency with power supply, and now we're having this heat wave, and it's, you know, the temperatures are rising, and then it's more like, you know, there's nowhere to go.
You can't run
True.
from this one.
I think that it brings up another dimension to the conversation, the financial implication, the financial cost of having people very dehydrated, fatigued, and all of that because of the intense heat. I'd hoped to have a doctor here with us today, but in the absence of that, I think you will be in a good position. You would have interacted with some of these medics as regards the implications of these heat waves and what people should be doing to at least keep their temperatures moderated and stay healthy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, yes. It's very important that everyone is advised to drink a lot of water so that you can stay hydrated. Also, there is room for enough of sensitization awareness for people to try to, you know, put on clothes that are not too, that will make them to have a lot of air. You know, don't put on clothes that are too tight. Try to wear clothes that will allow penetration of air into your system. Then we have to also learn to air our, you know, our homes. Open up the windows at night when you are sleeping, you know, for the fact that we don't have light and people are not very buoyant to get fuel to turn on their generator. There is need for people to open up their window blinds to have natural ventilation and cross ventilation in the rooms. But I was trying to stress on something before I went offline, that the issue of Lagos is critical because of the urbanization in Lagos. The level of population in Lagos is high, and there is tendency that a lot of human activities is going on in Lagos that is making the temperature of Lagos to be very, very high. There are a lot of vehicles in Lagos. Emission is high. The emission of greenhouse gases is high in Lagos, and it tends to make the temperature of Lagos to be extremely high. I was in Lagos last month, and I found it very difficult to, you know, to navigate. I was very hot. Within a short distance, I drank 3 bottles of bottled water. I was like, what is this? So Lagos is highly populated.
Okay, so what should...
activities-wise.
It's a given. I mean, on a daily, people are trooping into Lagos, and the population will continue to increase. So what would be some of the measures that the government and authorities should be taking to help in managing this heat wave? We have developments coming up here and there. We don't have a lot of greenery. So what would be your advice?
Okay, my advice at this point is that we have to go back to sustainable projects, go back to rural development. Let's create our factories, let's create our industries in the rural areas to reduce rural-urban migration. Because if we have infrastructures, we have industries in the rural area that makes people not to migrate to the city, the level of migration is going to reduce drastically. But for the fact that people don't have enough livelihood in the rural area, each and everyone tends to migrate to the urban city. And at the end of the day, there is congestion in the city, there is pressure in the city, the urban heat in the city tends to be very high. Also, we need to restore our wetlands. We need to go back, reduce deforestation, embark on afforestation, go back to planting of trees. As a matter of fact, I was in Ibadan last 2 weeks. I was wondering, I could barely see trees being planted along the major streets or expressway of Ibadan. I had to call a colleague. I said, man, this state is going to be desperately hot. I could barely see economic trees planted around. So what serves as carbon sink in this state? It means all the heat is going down to the state. So there's tendency that the heat wave within that region is going to be very, very high.
I'd like you to please explain what a carbon sink is. I have heard the term before. I am a scientist, I do know what it is, but so our viewers can understand the function of a carbon sink and where we can find them or where they exist.
Okay, carbon sinks naturally, trees, vegetations can serve as carbon sink, okay? We need to stop deforestation. We need to stop cutting down our trees because those trees serve as carbon sink. They absorb the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. They make use of those carbon dioxides to produce their own food, the photosynthesis. So it is very important that we encourage planting of trees, afforestation. Okay, so in any state, what is the Ministry of Environment doing? What activities, what projects are they bringing in place to see that we have our environment green? We have trees planted around to be able to serve, to make the atmosphere to be more conducive for people to, to carry on their lively activities.
All right, thank you.
Who are the most vulnerable people that are likely to get ill from heat waves, and what should be some of the steps they take to protect themselves?
Sorry, come again, please.
I'm asking who are those, or what class of individuals are more vulnerable to climate or heat wave related illness, and what they can do, to protect themselves.
Okay, at this juncture, I think the very, very less privileged are more vulnerable because in this context, as the weather is extremely hot, the water sector is stressed up. How many people have access to clean, potable water at this time? People are being exposed to drink water that they don't even care about the quality in this context. So you see the very poor are highly vulnerable. But the average or the rich, they have access to bottled water. They can drink water that are clean. They can rehydrate themselves effectively, having clean water at their disposal. But the less vulnerable, the people that are at the grassroots, the poor people out there, what is the quality of water they are taking? Knowing fully well that heat stress leads to waterborne diseases, because when you are exposed to water that are not clean, it can lead to, cholera. And as you are taking it, you are increasing the opportunity of you getting sick. But the rich out there, or the average, of course, someone like me, there is no way I can go to Lagos and I'll just buy sachet water and drink, which I will not even check the source. But people that have no option, what do you expect from them? They have no option than to drink what they have. And in so doing, they are being exposed to all manner of illnesses.
Well, thank you very much, Awa. To round this up and on a lighter note, Aishat, you stay in Abuja, and I remember living in Abuja one time, and the heat in February in Abuja is quite intense itself. But just at the end of February, it happens mostly. There is a rain, it's a storm that happens, Felicity, and what comes with the storm is very, very, very exciting. It's hail. It's hail, it's ice from the sky, and it was something I was very excited to see when I lived in Abuja all 3 years that I lived there. I don't know if you've experienced that before, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
I have experienced it before in Lokoja.
In Lokoja.
The heat. This one we're experiencing here is very minor compared to what
I can imagine.
I can imagine how
As a matter of fact,
coping.
people in Lokoja will tell you that it's just about 15 naira from Lokoja to Hellfire.
And then there's Gwagwala there as well, which is another hot place. But
Awa did raise important issues, and I guess it behooves the government and maybe non-governmental organizations to help alleviate some of the challenges that people that are disadvantaged can stay hydrated and away from these heat waves. I mean, people could die from it. Awa, thank you very much for giving us your time. We appreciate it. And of course, Aisha in the studio, thank you for the report.
Thank you, Felicity, for having me.
And we're looking for much more. Please do. We enjoy them always.
Definitely.
Thank you indeed. Special, what's it called now?
Shout outs.
Shout-outs,
yes. We cannot end today's show without saying happy birthday, Francisca. She made my face to look a little different, yes, with makeup. She's one of our makeup artists here, and today happens to be her birthday. So this is a special shout out to her. Happy birthday, Francisca. We love you here at News Central.
Well, congratulations on your 16th birthday.
She's definitely not 16. News Central does not employ underage.
That would be child labor. Oh, apologies, let's do 18. Let's do 18.
Yes, we could go for 18, ever young.
Well, let's say thank you to our viewers who stuck with us since yesterday morning to view the beautiful Felicity who joined us this weekend, and perhaps maybe will be joining us again next weekend, I'm hoping.